Well, I think there's a potential connection there. In one of the things, and we all, as GMs, if you GM long enough, you go through it, is the whole player engagement.
Mm-hmm.
And even great players, people who are friends, people who are good role players, can sometimes not engage with what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the more spontaneous or situational, it has been my experience that um, the more improvisational, let's just do the thing, really engages players more. And I don't know if it's a case of us looking at our notes less. I'm behind the screen looking at my notes, where they just sort of disengage with that, because when things are a little bit more fluid, you are engaging with the players more. You're
Right.
answering questions. You're asking
One
questions.
thing that I'm very candid about when we're playing in RuneQuest is just how loosey goosey I've been, or when I say, okay, I've made a decision about this. This is, you know, this is how that god works. But if you look,
Right.
for example, at the runes that I mentioned in the very first session, those aren't the runes that I came up with for those same entities later.
Okay.
For example, in the session that I did just post, at the end, they pointed out a ruins tower on the map, and I said, yeah, that's recent. Well, guess
Okay.
what? In this game, in the second session, in that setting, in that location, I changed
Hmm.
my mind. It's not recent. It's been generations.
Okay.
I just
Yeah.
flipped on it, you
Right.
know. And so, and
And
I'll
and
own up to it. No, I thought about it. I wanted to get to it. I know I said that last time. You know, let's.
and say I think that's an important thing too. Right there is not only do they have the ability to do more things, but as you're not locking yourself into one particular idea, given us a particular situation. You know what? I want to change my mind.
Yeah.
Something that game masters I don't think
Well,
do
especially if it
often.
doesn't make any difference. I mean, that was a throwaway comment about the tower at the end of the session.
Right.
It wasn't
Right.
relevant to anything they did. They actually hadn't even entered that community yet. The players were looking at the map for the first time. Me saying that was not really a dial back.
No. Right.
What it
Exactly.
means though, and I've been thinking about this for a while now, especially since I've been working on superhero games in a dedicated way for the first
Yeah.
time.
Right.
Remember my big training. I mean, I've had training going all the way back to, Holmes D&D, but my big
Right.
training in role playing is Champions.
Yes.
And yet you'll notice as a Forge veteran, I never talked about playing superheroes or champions at the Forge,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
so it was too personal. It was too much. I couldn't go into that. And there are other
Yeah.
things too. I felt as though the game culture had veered so far away from the way I knew the game that
Yeah.
it was that I couldn't face, you know, I just couldn't
Yes.
face dealing with people about that. So only
Yep.
through blogging my way through both the comics and the games for 2
Yeah.
years did I actually finally get my feet on the ground about how I wanted to do this. And one of the most important things about it is this notion of the sketch. And that's what
Hmm.
Michael Miller called it in one of his versions of With Great Power, which is not the version that he has now, but in one of them, he has a nice way of saying that the character really is just this sketch, which is just scribbled shit on a page. And your
Yes.
character sheet is only what you're playing out of that sketch this time.
Okay. Yep. I see that. That makes sense.
And so the I think Marvel Superheroes, the Cam Banks and a few other authors did also has this kind of interesting effect where they say, okay, here's Captain America, because all the characters are canonical in that game.
Yeah.
There's sort of a way to make up your character, you know,
Sort
off
of.
off
Right.
off in the back. But
Right.
they're much more interested in their canonical characters. But one of the interesting things they point out is that this is the character as they appear for this time. There's nothing stopping you from taking that sheet and having completely different features play those mechanical elements. The idea
Yes.
is so I don't know if you know that game, but it's very much of a dice pool with lots of different sized dice.
Okay.
So there's solo and buddy and team are three categories, and you have 3 dice of specific sizes that you have to assign. So if
Right.
you're operating as a solo, into your die pool goes that die.
Yeah.
Right. So you kind of choose what your character is kind of better at for those
Right.
things or their social role. Well, that's only one, and it's actually a fairly small scale one of the sheet that you can change for some other story. So here
Right.
we're looking at, playing the Avengers, and Captain America is very much a team guy, but over here we're playing Captain America and the Falcon, and this time he's
Yes.
a buddy, right? So I'm going to
Right.
make that the highest die. And so it seems kind of opportunistic to just sort of maximize, but in many ways it really
That
matches the
feels
way the comics work.
exactly. I was just thinking that that's
Mhm.
true to how comics work, because if
Yeah.
one writer and one artist
Hmm.
do Batman or Captain America,
Right.
then you have the next one comes along, and they may build on what they did before,
But
or they may
it's going to
completely
be a
totally
different
ignore,
sheet. It's a totally
but it's
different
going to be
character sheet. Yeah.
yes. Right.
And so
Right.
these things interest me in the sense of when I prepare, what things, I don't think that there's like a manual for what things are supposed to be fixed and which things are supposed to be sketchy, to coin a term, and which
Right.
things are going to be a different, more than sketchy, dedicatedly labile. We don't know. I'll figure it out when I get there. Right.
Right.
And so that's a
Yeah.
different thing entirely, where you just say, okay, that thing, fuck, I don't know. I can feel it in the back of my head somewhere, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But either I'll have to have it by the time we hit it in play, but I'm just going to keep, making it up, until we get there. And so, but which is which? What parts are which? My only claim is that there is a pole star, and the pole star is don't front load the outcomes of characters' situations that the players should be active in. Don't front load those outcomes. That,
Right.
okay, first they're going to
Exactly.
fight the hyenas, and here it comes. And then they'll have the gold key.
Right.
That's the one. That's the moment right there. Right.
Yeah.
So everyone, when I talk about these things, everyone's saying, well, come on, Ron, you're imposing your will when you throw the hyenas at them. And
I
I'm
mean,
saying,
you've
but
got
I'm
to.
not talking about throwing the hyenas at them. I'm talking
Right.
about assuming that they're going to kill the hyenas and get the gold key.
Right.
That's what I'm
Right.
talking about.
Yes.
And
It,
so,
it,
yeah.
we're supposed to provide conflicts and situations
Mm-hmm.
and crises for them to. You just can't sit. I mean, the GM just can't simply sit there and be like,
Right. And not
"What do
only
you want
that,
to do?" I mean, you can, but
well,
you do
only
have to
in the
provide
sense
them
that if
something.
what they do themselves is crisis generating.
Yes. Right.
And
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
that's it. So I just wanted to amend what you said a little bit. Yes, to bring in crises and so forth, but also to be open to crises that arise sensibly from whatever has just happened.
Right.
And
Yes.
so with those in mind, yeah, I mean, and again, I mean, I'm not playing my non-player characters as morons. They're up to things, right?
Yes,
In
they
this
are.
last session of RuneQuest I just played, a guy came in and dragged one of the player characters out of bed in the middle of the night. Said, you got to come with me. I mean, I heard you talking about this stuff. And so, but that's the point. Who was he going to drag out of the bed in the middle of the night? The
Right.
one who had pressed about a particular topic. If none
Right.
of that, and I hadn't even really thought about that. I had come up with that character
Yeah.
and his priorities. Then when one of the player characters started talking pretty, pretty insistently about some things, even to the point of continuing when other player characters are elbowing him,
Right.
then I was like, oh, well, obviously my dude is going to go get him in the middle of the night.
Yes. Yep. That
And
makes sense.
so it's not the same thing as my planned shoot. I had no idea they were going to get to that tower in this session.
Right.
And they found themselves in the top of the tower, fighting the fucking thing. And and in a very, and I might add, in a very non-prepared, don't have my armor kind of way.
Oh,
And
those are
so,
always
yeah,
the moments.
yeah. I mean, at one point, I mean, the player said, I got my armor, don't I? And I was kind of like, do you? And he was like, oh shit, I don't, do I? I really don't. And so um, the whole idea here then is knowing which is which, what's
Yes.
fixed, what's
Right.
sketchy, which means you're still shaping it, but we're working with something here and we don't know what it is. And then finally, and what's real labile, what's really open to just flipping open and deciding about. um and in all cases though, the pole star being, how much am I controlling things? Am I controlling how things go? Am I orchestrating? Am I directing? Am I the episode director here? Am I
Yes.
making sure that at let's see, 42 minutes for a standard US hour-long program back in the
Right.
90s. And
Yeah.
so out of those 42 minutes, at the 32-minute mark, what are Mulder and Scully going to suddenly realize, right? How come Mulder or Scully didn't figure it out 15 minutes ago? Well, because it's not the 32-minute mark. That's why not.
That's
And
right. Yeah.
so,
Exactly.
because that would be no fun. We want it to be at this point. And so
Yes.
the programs, no pun intended, because it is a program,
Right.
the reliable, the entertainment, transitive entertainment, I entertain you
Yeah.
elements are all in place. And it's very scary to tell role players or a game master, a habitual game master, to that, you know what, let's not do that.
Right.
I just took away
Exactly.
their toolbox.
Yes.
I took away,
That's right.
I just took away almost every how to GM section in all of their books.
Yes, you did.